General McComb paused a moment to look at the image of the Earth, before calling the briefing to order. They had each been studying different parts of the data, and it was timeshare. Gaia has learned a bit about the final data of the Sol system. A gesture at the holographic Earth rotating above the conference table. An inland sea now took up a large chunk of the northern former frontier states, and southern Canada fed by 5 massive super rivers. General Stanford's fleet was our system engaging the third-to-last Swarm Lord. He killed it. While returning to Sol, the second-to-last and the last Swarm Lord's fleets attacked. The system defenses destroyed the second-to-last ship and killed it. But the last Swarm Lord managed to throw an asteroid at the Earth. He paused. Gaia spoke up.
They all threw asteroids. There were multiple strikes. It was the last that broke the North American tectonic plate.
McComb began to speak again. General Stanford's fleet arrived as the last defenders fell. Before the Morloff could finish the job, they fled. General Stanford copied what data he could from surviving planetary sources and orbitals, but all data pointed to Earth being gone. There was no one to try to evacuate, and nowhere to evacuate them to. He spent the next 2 decades chasing them before catching them on the Malkar homeworld. Then he came home. General McComb nodded to Gaia.
Per his logs, he expected to find a dead world. Instead, he found an Earth barely able to support a little life, and getting stronger. They spent years in orbit going over the data. As best they could tell, the Omega Strike.
Gaia's holographic grass turned brown and faded as she spoke.
As they called it, broke the North American plate and should have kicked up a massive planet-wide dust storm. In fact, General Stanford's own logs show the beginnings of the storm before they left the system. However, the cracked tectonic plates later shifted.
The holographic land Gaia stood on began to crack and fracture,
due to lunar gravitational pulls which allowed untold billions of gallons of ice-cold seawater to slam into molten hot lava. The surviving feeds showed this happened a total of 5 times, each creating a massive steam explosion, and one of the super rivers branching off from the Omega Sea, as they called it. Each of these steam explosions would have been a catastrophic event.
The holographic grass blew away in an ethereal wind.
However, they also sent billions of gallons of water vapor into the air to bind with the billions of tons of dust in the air. When General Stanford's fleet returned, they saw evidence of literal rains of mud due to this. However, with 6 separate planetary life-ending events happening in such quick succession, not counting any of the smaller strikes we have no data on, all contact with Earth's ZD facilities were lost. When they re-established contact, only a single facility remained.
The grass began to grow back, and the cracks in the ground began to heal.
They could not find where, and my elder sister was badly damaged. She maintained enough facilities to begin re-terraforming, but would not or could not respond to any inquiries.
Dr. Duquesne spoke.
As their supplies began to dwindle, the surviving crew, and there weren't many due to old age, chose to go planetside, build a community, and try to find Gaia 1 and the surviving ZD facility. They learned that 1's core was at the surviving ZZ site, but where that site was, they didn't have a clue. It was supposed to be somewhere in the American eastern seaboard, but with the Omega Strike, the plate cracks and their subsequent steam explosions and rains of mud changed the topography. She trailed off.
Mix spoke up. General Stanford remained in orbit, kept the Odin online, and programmed it for a controlled shutdown once he died. All the other ships were slaves to the Odin, reactors in controlled shutdown, but were ready for remote reactivation operations until their backup power supplies depleted. McComb took back over. Between when they returned to the Sol system and went down to Earth, they did manage to bring the Aldrin shipyards back online, in the Tycho crater, and set automated units to repair the Armstrong City Dome. Gaia was working on getting those facilities back online, but they entered an uncontrolled shutdown state when their reactor lost power.
Gaia spoke again. We have found their city. No records of what they called it, but it still exists. Orbital surveillance shows it is being maintained by a dwindling fleet of automatons. I suspect this was how they built it to begin with. The outskirts are ringed with fields for farming, though only 2 or 3 appear to be active presently. It is clear from the data that this is due to a copper rotation programmed into the automatons.
Roscoe cleared his throat. Yeah, so, I've done some low-level sweeps. Lots of buildings with caved-in roofs, but the central structure has a power signature. Barely reads. Most of the roofs left have some really old solar panels strapped to them. Gaia can't get into whatever systems they left because the main transceiver array on the roof of the big structure looks like modern art. I think they've had some wind planetside. Dr. McComb nodded. Mix, Dr. Duquesne, I'd like you two to go planetside and see if you can get that array back up. Find out what's making that power signature. The Selfenir were circling the settlement. All right, kiddos. There's a landing pad on the central structure that looks like it would kill us. I'll be sending you down there, Roscoe announced.
Sarah and Mix nodded. Understood, Roscoe. Just get us low enough, we can step off, Mix replied. Sarah agreed. Yes, no need to stress the structure until we've had a chance to inspect it.
That was my plan, darling, Roscoe replied.
Suddenly they stepped off the transport onto the landing pad. It seemed stable, but as old as the structure was, they didn't want to chance landing the Cepheder on it just yet.
I'll be on the radio, kiddos. Let me know if you'll be needing a pickup, Roscoe announced as he lifted away.
Half an hour later, Sarah and Mix were in the center structure's control room. Hey, Sarah, Mix asked, shining his flashlight into a darkened room. What? She asked him, not looking up from the console she was trying to bring online. Is that an AI call? Huh? She asked, turning and following his gaze. Holy shit, it is. But it doesn't appear to have an AI active in it. He moved his flashlight around and spotted a sign. Looks like power room is 3 floors down. Let's check that. It didn't take the two of them long to reach the power room. In it, they found feeds coming in from the settlement's remaining solar panels. Less than 40% of them remained, and all of those were under 10% efficacy left. If we cut the AI core we saw out of the system, our APUs will be sufficient to power the computers. Assuming they were hermetically sealed, they should still work, Sarah said, after examining the power room. Mix was flipping through some logs on an auxiliary console. They built a reactor, fueled it, but never started it up. If we can get Gaia to land a few automatons to check it out, and make any repairs, we can get this place fully online. Why didn't they use it? Sarah asked, as she studied the schematics of the power room. According to this, the AI core was to give their Gaia a new core if they found her. Looks like they were worried that her original core was damaged. But without the power draw needed for the core, the solar units they built into the entire settlement was more than sufficient to power everything they needed. Makes sense, Sarah replied. See if you can find subpanel 3 and cut breakers 1, 9, and 13 out of the loop. Sure. It took him a moment to find the appropriate panel. They're already off, he announced. Shit, okay, give me a sec. She scrutinized the schematics again. Alright, find backup panel 2 and cut out breaks 2, 10, and 14. Backup panels are... He looked around a moment before spotting them across the room. Here, stand by. He opened the panel. Okay, those are on, cutting them now. Once he did, Sarah's panel showed a vast increase in available power, and lights began to come on. Boom. That did it, I guess. She nodded. Let's tie in our APUs anyway and get back upstairs. Back upstairs, all the terminals were up, and the AI core room was lit up, but the core was still dark. Okay, Sarah said. Patching us into internal comms now. She clicked on the channel. Roscoe, can you hear us?
That I can, darling. See some lights coming on and the sensors show a lot more power flowing now.
Yeah, we bypassed some things. When Gaia finishes that transceiver array, ask her to send some automatons to check out a reactor. Seeing as when they built this settlement, they built a reactor, but never needed its power, so never brought it online.
What'll do, darling. Good news is she powered up those lunar shipyards and can crank out replacements for anything we need, including a tachyon beacon.
Oh wow, Mick said. We get that in place, we can get near real-time contact with Terra Nova. 3 days later, the transceiver had been replaced, and Gaia was going through the settlement's logs. They never gave up searching for my elder sister or the surviving ZC facility. They found several other facilities and were able to connect to the primary facility because they were all connected via quantum communication units to a facility beneath the lunar surface. But why? Mix asked. He, Sarah, and Roscoe were planetside. Gaia and the General were still in orbit. QCU this close doesn't make much sense. Sarah frowned. I think they expected some kind of orbital strikes and figured any kind of hard lines could or would be cut. Any other kinds of wireless communication could be tracked or its receiver array destroyed, but a QCU couldn't be. Gaia continued. Reactor inspections should be done within the next 2 weeks. Building inspection is around the central compound is completed. No major repairs needed, and I found out what they named the settlement. What's that? Jeromy Carmickle asked via hollow. Valhalla, Gaia replied. They made the settlement larger than they needed, hoping that they would find a surviving ZD facility with active stasis pods. Gaia's holographic grass turned pale and blew mournfully in the non-existent wind. The automatons have accounted for all but 4 of the survivors' final resting places. I have taken over their systems and they are looking for the final 4, as well as burning the remains of the others. I will begin necessary repairs to the settlement next and replacement of the solar panels. Available power will begin to increase by tomorrow. Mick spoke up. I've been looking at the logs. PFC Stevens and CPO Rodriguez were 2 of the younger survivors, and are 2 of the missing 4. They thought they found the primary ZD facility, and there is a Salpinair missing from inventory.
Roscoe laughed. Laddie, I've been to that hangar. What's left of it? How can you tell? It was one of the buildings that had its roof ripped off, and was filled with the rusting guts of transports and broken automatons.
Flight log and rusted hulls. There's debris enough to account for all but one Salpinair per the logs. And I found a flight plan. Systems noted the departure of the missing Salpinair, but never its return.
If they found it, why didn't they return? McComb asked.
They would have been in their 130s and 40s when they found it, sir, Meeks replied. Even if they found it, they might not have made it back.
McComb nodded. Okay. Find where they landed. See if you can locate the facility.
If it's where they thought, we should be able to. They left every detailed note, sir. They knew they didn't have much time left.